This is Duke University.
Our next session is really special. We are very fortunate to have some really outstanding individuals associated with our program. And someone was asking me earlier in how this all gets started. And when I came to Duke, I was inspired by a lot of things. I'd been here before as a medical student. I'd been here before as a resident. But when I came back, it struck me that we could really do something special that would establish our training programs, our medical school, as something different from other places. And I think that inspiration came from my experience at West Point, from my classmates, from my experience in the military, but also from this university and looking around and saying, what could we do different? We could look at the Fuqua School of Business, and there was tremendous leadership programs there. The Sanford School of Public Policy, tremendous leadership programs, including the Hart Leadership Program, the Divinity School, the Law School, and in athletics. And certainly Coach K is the face of Duke University, and I think, Coach, you inspired a lot of what we've done in this idea that we are going to set ourselves apart as the place for leadership development in medicine. And Coach has been gracious enough to speak at every forum to this point. And there's a few people that have continuously contributed. Now, you've seen that we have new people every year, and as a result, our program keeps growing, but we have a tremendous foundation from the people that keep coming back and the people that keep contributing. And certainly Mike Krzyzewski is one of those people, as well as one of his former players and my West Point classmate, who was captain of the basketball team his senior year and is now the commanding general at Fort Leavenworth, Bob Brown. So these two outstanding leaders are going to have the final session before we hear from our Feagin scholars. And again, I would really encourage you to stay for lunch because this will be a highlight of the program. But these two leaders are part of our foundation and really have contributed so much to where we are now. And I'm really enthusiastic and want to welcome head coach of the men's basketball team here at Duke University, Mike Krzyzewski, and Lieutenant General Bob Brown.
Thanks. Thanks, Steve. Thanks a lot. Thanks, Steve. Awesome. Well, good morning. We're going to stand up in front of you, okay? We don't feel comfortable sitting down, and he looks a lot taller than me if we're sitting down. We're a little bit, and I told him not to get that close because then, you know, his shine will outshine whatever little shine I have. So we have our marching orders. It's not every day that a three-star general gets some orders, but it's good to balance him, you know, it's, in so many ways. It's great to be here again to see how the Feagin conference has grown. More importantly, it's good to see John and Marty. You two guys are great people. When Bob and I have talked about leadership over the years, I really liken it to the Feagin scholars and your coaches. Like I was his coach a long time ago. And part of having balanced leadership, there's, you know, we talk about it being just individual. Like I've heard a lot of great talk, and I know you've had great discussion on this, but basically you can get balanced professionally, and you can get balanced, you know, just personally. And the two should go hand in hand. I think if you don't look at it in both ways, then you're making a mistake. One of the reasons that we've continued to be friends is because I've tried to balance myself professionally. In other words, a long time ago, he was you, all right? You're better than he was. He's kind of obstinate, and you know, he liked to shoot more than play defense, but It's amazing he's in the defense industry, right? He is such an offensive player. Amazing. But basically, we became friends as the years went along. And the people who are helping to teach you now understand this mentoring stuff goes only a certain way. You know, like you're being mentored and taught right now. But as you achieve, and the people that you have been mentored by, you know, you become friends. And it's important for those people who are mentoring you and for you to use kind of the example that we've had. Like I'm 67. How old are you now?
55.
So we're best friends. And basically, we've studied leadership along the way. You know, he was 20 when I coached him, okay? And so really for the last 35 years, we have balanced our leadership by talking about things. And so one of the things about balancing leadership is to get out of your own comfort zone. First of all, maintain relationships that you have within your field, but get out of your own comfort zone and listen to other people. Do you listen to the same music? Hopefully you listen to a lot of different music. What does each bit of music make you feel like? Does one set of music put you in a certain mood, another in another mood? And so basically the study of leadership should not be doing it over and over again with the same people at your age, with the same ideas in your profession. And also it shouldn't be where you're listening to the same music all the time. You know, you should go out and listen to other leaders in other fields. And as a result, you'll be stimulated and you'll learn. And to me, that's what keeping balance professionally is about. One last thing for me, and then Bob's going to go through some things. When I think of leadership, when I think of balance, I think of being centered. Okay? That's, to me, you know, if you're too far this way or this way. Now, what does too far this way or this way mean? Okay, when you're a leader, hopefully you have a lot of achievements. You know, like in my thing, you won a national championship. You won an Olympic gold medal. Whew. You're over here. You're not centered anymore. I mean, you think you got it. And you did have it, or else you wouldn't have done that. Probably a lot of people have had it. And then a lot of people, when they go here, stay there. And then something bad happens, you know. The other part of it is you lose to Mercer in the first round of the NCAA tournament. Okay? You got to get back to center. Now, you want to get back here a lot quicker than when you want to get back here over here. But being centered, now how do you do that? And I think you do that by getting out of your area. Like you get involved with this conference. You get involved at the Emily Krzyzewski Center. You work with the CEO Roundtable to fight cancer. You do things where you pay back. I pay back to the basketball gods. Just like I'm sure there's orthopedic gods. And none of them are in this room, by the way. Let's do a little bit of centering about that, too. All right? I know you're not there, but just in case, just kind of inch back to the mainstream. And basically, you know, not everybody's going to find the cure. Not everyone's going to win the national. You're not the only one. And so when you go back out, you pay back. And as you pay back and you're getting centered again, you then have a better chance to hopefully do this. But if this happens, it also gives you a chance to get back here quicker. So the professional aspect, and there's the personal aspect, and then I look at it as centering. Bob?
Thanks, Coach. I want to start. I've never would speak publicly without with Coach being here without thanking him. You know, I was a young man that didn't know anything about the military. I was going to the University of Michigan on a basketball scholarship, and Coach K came to my house to talk me into visiting West Point. And really didn't know what I wanted to do, and it just gave me this incredible purpose, serving something greater than yourself. And so I've been in 37 years since he came to the house, 33 since West Point. And I've loved every minute. The people in the military are so incredible, but none of that would have been possible without Coach. And so I'm just really grateful. Coach, you know, sometimes you stumble into a passion. Sometimes you know your whole life what you want to do. But I learned more on the basketball court at West Point about leadership from Coach K than anywhere else. And some of the things first of all, as Coach said, I was sitting where you are, although some people will know that I know Coach K, they think we're classmates and teammates. So I just say I had a much harder life, you know, and but I had hair back when he knew me, and it wasn't gray, and he hasn't changed hardly at all. But you know, it is intimidating though at first. This was your coach. And the same way with mentors, I think they're your boss probably. There's someone you know you respect greatly like Dr. Feagin. And it's intimidating at first. And quite honestly, when I was a young lieutenant and I was out of West Point, and I remember thinking, well, you know, Coach is at Duke now. You know, who the heck am I? I played at Army. But that's not the type of leader he is. And I would suggest to the folks that you want to be your mentors, that's not how they are. They do it because they love people. And I've seen him mentor and take care of guys that played at Army, never played a minute in a game. They were just practice players, and he's gone out of his way to do incredible things to help them and mentor them. That's the kind of leader he is. So I think you have to get over that. And then after I got over that, and we really realized at one point when I was a captain, I'd had like my 7th knee operation. I will disagree with you on one thing, Coach. There is an orthopedic god in here. It's Dean Taylor. He's operated on me like 7 times. Yeah. Despite
sounds to me he should have operated once. I don't know. There's another way of looking at that. Took you 7 times?
No. See, that was my fault, Coach.
Yeah, maybe.
Because he would tell me, don't run, don't do this, don't do that. I didn't listen for like 30 years. So anyway, but Dean has kept me going. So, but you know, at one point after about 7 knee operations, I was, you know, they're saying you can't do this infantry stuff anymore as a captain teaching up at West Point. I was debating getting out. I remember coming down and talking to Coach, and you know, it was so neat as he could see I still had a fire, you know, to serve. And so you look at, you know, that type of advice and mentorship is incredible. And it certainly gives you a balance because you won't know where to go for answers often. And I've been very blessed with incredible leaders who've mentored me. And the theme for most of them is authentic leadership, humble leaders, you know. Very accomplished individuals, but very humble and authentic. And that makes a huge difference in balance. Now, and I just turn it back over to Coach. I just wanted to say also in balance, it's very tough. We've talked about balance a lot, but you know, to be successful in whatever you're doing, you have to have a passion about it. And again, something I learned from Coach, he has an amazing passion for what he does, and it drives you. And I have a passion for what I do, and all of you sitting out there who are successful, you have a passion for it. So you're thinking about it 24/7, and it's easy to say balance, but it's very hard to get away from it. And today, you can never really get away. You're at the electronic leash, and you can never truly break away. And I think back one of our country's greatest leaders ever, General Marshall, during World War II, you know, came up with a Marshall Plan, really saved our country in World War II. Every day, he took time to think. It wouldn't let anybody bother him. Here he's running, forming an army, millions. You started with nothing, forming an army, trying to win World War II, and he took time every day to think. And that's easy to say, but not often easy to do because you're just, you know, the world moves at such a fast pace now. I often wonder if Marshall would have done that had he had a BlackBerry or an iPhone, you know, I don't know. But it is key. Balance is not easy. The one other thing I learned from Coach is getting your family involved. Doesn't mean that their whole identity is what you do. You know, we both happen to have 3 daughters who are amazing women, very strong, amazing women, take after their moms. but while they have their own life and world, they always supported and understood and always helped out in what I was doing. And I saw that in Coach from, when Debbie was a cheerleader for the team when she was 10 and we were at West Point, they're excited about it and they're part of it. So if the family's part of what you're doing and what you love and what your passion is, it certainly helps your balance. And of course, then you have to give back. Somebody mentioned golf games, or my golf game's horrible because your hobby is your family. And, I'm not going to spend 8 hours playing golf when you're gone a lot, you're working a lot. You do everything with your family, and so you sacrifice golf game and maybe some other things, but makes a big difference.
Yeah, when we're talking about balanced leadership, again, in a professional sense, as you become that CEO or the lead, you're head of an organization, you can get out of balance in that you think that your communication is the only communication that should be going down to all of your people. And so a huge thing is that the empowerment along the chain of command in the military. There's a squad leader, a platoon leader, a company commander, a battalion commander. These people all have to be given the opportunity to lead. For me, my assistant coaches, people, the head of academics for our group. And this past month, I've gone through a very stimulating, exciting reculturization of my program. We've been here for 34 years, and a program is a culture. A team does something for a certain period of time. A program does it all the time. They're on a continuum. And when you're on a continuum and you have an infrastructure that's a great infrastructure, but it's been there for a long time, you can get into things where people at different levels, they filter for the leader. They do things for the leader. And over a course of time, sometimes that filterization process turns out to show the personality of the person filtering more so than the person who is leading. Sometimes that's good. But overall, if everybody was doing that, then it's not a consistent culture. Even if one area is a little bit better than what the leader should do, another one's a little bit less, it's not consistent. So, like for us, the players who are involved in that culture are not hit at a certain pace all the time as far as the values and what we want to do overall. And so what we've done is to center, get balanced again, because it was off balance. It was off balance. And that's something where sometimes you need to have the experience where you get completely knocked out. Like this year, if say we had gone to the Sweet 16 or the Elite 8 or, we would have gone further than we did. We had a really good year and a horrible, horrible ending. And so, again, if I didn't have the center, if I wasn't accustomed to getting back to center with my family and my personal life and my professional life, it's a time where maybe I should just give it up or whatever. Instead, I'm like in a really good groove. I mean, I'm not in a good groove, I'm in a great groove. And a lot of that has to do with centering and trying to get centered again. The military is the best example of that because it's structured that way. And in Bob's case, you try to empower people. Personally, for me, I've always tried to include my family in everything that I do. My 3 daughters and my wife, we call ourselves the starting 5. Okay? I mean, my 3 daughters' husbands don't necessarily like that, but quite frankly, I don't give a damn. Because if you're the pop, you still want to be your daughter's boyfriend. They can get married, but I'm still their boyfriend. And my wife did a heck of a thing when we first started out at West Point, and then when we came to Duke, is that we never had anything in our house about basketball. There was never a trophy, a picture of me with a player, anything like that. It was all about our family. Now, I still came home and a long time ago watched reel-to-reel film, you know, and when we watched that, for the older people, when the film goes off, there's a white thing on the thing, and when Debbie would be watching, would do little, figures on the thing and whatever, and then and then she wanted to watch a little bit of the tape. And throughout my whole career, I've never had my daughters ever say to me, "Dad, you love basketball more than me." And I don't know exactly how you do that, but do it. But do it. And at the end of the day, every day, I know that I'm loved, I'm supported unconditionally, unfailingly by that group. And if you get away from that group, you're going to have trouble. You're going to have trouble. Yeah, you're going to have trouble. Yeah, again, I'm sure Dick Camp would talk about the spiritual aspect and all that. That's a part of being balanced. But the main thing that I want to say is that the family has got to be the center of what you're doing. When I came to Duke, Duke did a heck of a thing. They said, when we go to tournaments and some of the games, you can take your family with you, okay? And now that I coach the U.S. basketball team, I've done it for 10 years, and we'll do it again this summer in the World Championships in Spain. I won't take my family there, just my wife, because it's in September. But the last 2 Olympics that we've gone to, I've taken all my grandchildren, my daughters, their husbands, and we've done it as a family. We've been there. And so the inclusion of family, I think, is huge, and you come up with innovative ways of getting it done. Bob, I don't know if you...
Yeah, another key lesson that I saw that as a player, and then over the years saw that. And I know that Coach and I were talking, I think it's really important. I talked about the family being involved. I always felt like with my 3 daughters and my wife, it was very important that they knew. We talked about moves earlier, 23 moves in 33 years, and then gone a lot, deployed and gone a lot. So I always felt very important they knew I wanted to be with them. And I felt like some of my peers kind of enjoyed being away, and their family saw that they enjoyed it. And I, given the choice, I would be with my family, and they knew that. So I always felt the incredible unconditional love at the greatest highs and the lowest of lows, that incredible unconditional love there, and feel very, very fortunate. I think over the last 12 years, I've had the honor of commanding from as few as 8,000 soldiers up to about 120,000 soldiers in what we call a corps. And so the challenge in that, the first time I was with those 8,000 soldiers and deployed in combat, again, I had pretty good balance, even though, as Becky was saying earlier, there's way more to do before you deploy. But you figure out how to get at what's important now, the win that Becky talked about. And but deployed, all of a sudden, I felt very guilty if I was doing anything but 24/7. Somebody was always out and about, and they were empowered. But I just felt like, working out, for example, I stopped the first couple of weeks I was in combat. I didn't work out because I felt extremely guilty. Here I am working out, and they're out on a patrol. Well, what I found was I didn't realize how much working out gave me balance, the physical balance, and it was a stress relief for me. And very quickly, the staff and surrounding yourself with quality people, and then people also that can tell the emperor he has no clothes on, like, sir, you need to work out. You're driving us nuts. You're not yourself. And you don't necessarily see that. And so I got over that guilt. I still felt guilty working out, but I had to work out to keep the stress down and to make better decisions. And I had to force myself to sleep, and I had to force myself to do these things to make better decisions. But you can say it, but it's not easy when someone's out there. But to get to the empowerment part that Coach mentioned, I'm really proud of the military. For 50-some years, we were all about command and control, like most businesses. very hierarchical. Nobody's more bureaucratic than the government. And, in the old day when I was a young officer, you could look out, and go left, go right, do this, do that. And we were still more flexible than the folks we might have fought against, the Soviets in the Cold War days. We still had more flexibility in this, so we could use command and control, and it worked. All the military in here, as we started deploying after 9/11, very quickly it became obvious the world had changed. And there's, if you just think about what you get in your mail versus your inbox now, you're like 150 emails a day, and you're just overwhelmed with information. And multiply that 1,000 times when you're deployed, you get help from all kinds of places trying to help you, but you're overwhelmed with tons of information. And so you can no longer use command and control. I mean, it doesn't work. And of course, business is going through this. Sports is going through, and so you realize we switched to what we call mission command. So it's disciplined initiative. You have to understand your subordinates, get to know them so that you build trust. And some will be brand new, and you get to know them and you can trust them this much. And then they get to a limit and they come up and ask you for guidance, a brand new leader. Some leaders you can trust completely. They have experience, you know them, you trust them, and you give them the broadest amount of disciplined initiative, empowerment. And as Coach mentioned, the way you judge units now that's changed from when we were younger is clearly if you as a leader leave and things are screwed up, you've got problems. You're not empowering. It's not the climate you want, the leadership you want. You've got to be able to leave and the unit keeps rolling right along. That's a good leader, and that's empowerment. Those folks at every echelon that Coach mentioned doing their job and feeling empowered, feeling trusted, feeling part of the team. Really proud of that. As I was going to command that large formation, 120,000 soldiers, I had to meet with the Chief of Staff of the Army, General Odierno. And if you've ever seen him, he's a pretty intimidating guy. They call him Shrek. He's a big guy. And so I went in to see him, and I'll never forget, okay, well, he's like, hey, Bob, I trust you. You're empowered. Get out there and do the right thing. Don't look over your shoulder. What amazing guidance. And you can do so much when you have an organization like that. And I would also say today you'll fail if you don't, if you can't empower and build that trust to be able to do that.
Yeah, we'd like to have this be interactive if you have some questions. The one thing, like Bob said, his staff would go tell him to work out. My staff gives me a Snickers bar. And when I start looking like someone else, and all of a sudden I become the right guy again. So there are different ways of centering, that you can do it. But if you have any questions of either one of us, I would love to interact with that. Anybody have anything? Yes, ma'am.
So first of all, thank you so much for your comments thus far. I know you were in the back for a little bit of the panel that we had.
Yeah.
Before this, and our panelists, both today and yesterday, have both talked about crucible moments, an experience in their lives that forced them to reconsider where their center was or how to get back to center. Do either of you have crucible moments that you think really influenced your perspective on leadership and particularly balancing your life and your leadership?
Actually, it's a new book I'm putting out. It has 54 chapters of crucible moments.
Okay, well, maybe that's a few too many for
I
today.
have them, but I'd rather have Bob start out with that.
I'm very similar. I have a whole series of crucible moments from when I was a senior, the captain of the team at West Point, never been hurt, never missed a game, and I tore my patella tendon, the kneecap broke in half. I remember I was in a game and I hit a wet spot driving down the floor, and I'd never been hurt. And I remember saying, taking me to the ambulance, and I was saying, will I be back for the second half, and they're kind of like, so 6 months later in the cast. So, it's really interesting because I got to speak here at Duke a couple of years ago, and I talked about failure. And, this generation, what I found, is very afraid to fail. And they look at, like Coach K, or they look at a general, and obviously you're more talented, you're smarter, you've never failed. And I tell them, I failed a lot. Now, I learned, from those mistakes. But almost every rank, I was almost relieved for doing what I thought was the right thing. And maybe I didn't go about it quite the right way or how I did it, but I learned a ton from those things. And quite honestly, I'm fairly convinced, you know, the bureaucracy of the government, they get the wrong Brown. Someday they're going to say, hey, you're supposed to be retired as a major. What the hell are you doing as a general, you know? But I figure, you know how the government is. I've got a few more years before they sort it out, and I'll just keep going. But those failures are tough, and you know, they're really tough. And those were all crucible moments for me. It taught me. I had one particular one happen when I was a lieutenant colonel that was really tough. And when I was going through it, I thought, oh, this is just horrible. And a mentor of mine said, hey, someday you'll laugh at this. And I thought he was crazy. But not only do I laugh at it now, but I talk to all the future commanders. I get them a job I'm in now. I talk to all the future battalions, about 1,500 people, and brigades, about 5,000 people, all those future commanders. And everybody is about 12 generals talk to them. I'm the only one that talks about failure. And I know they all walk out there thinking, man, this is great. I'm going to be a 4-star general, you know? Because but I've learned, and it's made me a much better leader. When you're down that low, and you see some things. I knew when I had guys fail, someone said earlier, bad things, I think it was Becky, bad things can happen to good people, bad things can happen to good units. It's how you respond to that. And over the years, leaders that I've led, the proudest moment I have is when they'll say, yeah, we had some bad things happen, but you know, anybody can lead when things are going well, but how General Brown responded when things were going poorly is what really showed me and taught me, which makes you feel, you know, pretty proud.
You know, for me, I'm going to tell about two. One that I didn't know was going to happen, and I think you can create crucible moments, okay? And the first one is in the 94-95 season. We had gone to 7 out of 9 Final Fours, which is crazy. It's just crazy. And then what that does, first of all, the season never ends. And then because of the popularity that you get, your school gets, everything gets, you know, each year is like 2 years. And I had a problem with my back and had to get an operation after we started practice. And I didn't listen to how I should be coming back. But I was already worn out. I wouldn't say combat fatigue, because that puts what they do, what we're doing the same, and it's not. But it's fatigue, basketball coaching fatigue, leadership fatigue. And I didn't listen to anybody. I came back in 2 days. And after about 6 weeks, I was knocked down. And I not only was knocked down physically, I could not literally feel anything. Like love, hate, nothing. I had no feeling whatsoever. And now that's really getting off center. And if you do get off center, then you're not going to get back centered by yourself. So that's just not going to happen. So especially through the help of Keith Brody and a team of people over a number of months, physically I got back pretty good, but emotionally took a lot longer. And I never knew, I didn't know if I was going to coach again. And two important moments for me, one was my AD at that time, Tom Butters. I offered to resign, kind of like in the military. If you're not ready, you can't lead your troops, you should get the hell out of there. Somebody else should lead them. And he said, you take your time, you're with, and really about 4 or 5 months later, I started getting it back. And as a result of that, I changed completely how I led. And I empowered more people in that. And that was the biggest moment for me. One that I kind of made happen for myself was taking on coaching the United States team. When I was asked to do it, it's really like, in some respects, not a no-win situation. I'm already in the Basketball Hall of Fame. We've won national championship. My so-called legacy, I'm good. You know, I'm good. I can kind of walk into any of those rooms and be with anybody and whatever. And so I got out of my comfort zone. And really, you kind of roll the dice with it. And And I wanted to do that. I felt it would give me what I needed instead of being the other guy, to be somebody new to create. And so a crucible moment is you're used to walking in and you got 18 to 22-year-old guys who are looking at you, and then the first time you walk in with the U.S. team and there's LeBron, Kobe, Carmelo, and all these guys, and you say, shoot, this is different. You better get your stuff together. And it's helped me immensely. Immensely. It's helped Duke immensely. It's helped Duke immensely. And so sometimes getting out of your comfort zone creates a crucible moment for you. So any other stuff for either? Yes, sir.
Bob, I told you I was going to ask this question.
You already prepped this?
Yeah. So this isn't good. You weren't
Typical
supposed to say that,
military
damn it.
response to this.
Well, that's fine. But whether it's a pickup game on an asphalt court, on a Sunday afternoon, blue chip athletes, the kinds of folks that we went to school, and Bob is an excellent example, and Dean, of the kind of guys and gals, Becky, that we got to go to school with, and the group here in the Feagin Scholars. How do you deal with leadership when you're just a member of the team? You don't have the title, you don't have the team captain job, you're not the coach or the commander. How do you foster leadership when you're just a team member? And Bob, I'll lead off with you because I told you it was coming.
Yeah, but you weren't supposed to tell everybody. You told me.
If he takes out notes now,
Yeah.
just everybody can leave the room.
Yeah, take your time.
You can take a timeout.
Yeah, timeout. Defer to coach. Well, it's a tougher leadership. That came up earlier. It's like peer leadership and being part of the team. And you have to be prepared for more frustration. It's a tough question because I've been thinking about it, and I can tell you it is frustrating sometimes because you'll have an idea and you'll kind of know what's right, but you're not in charge. So you find yourself kind of influencing the individual in charge to lead them in that direction. But hey, they're their own leader, and sometimes they'll do something else. So you get kind of frustrated oftentimes. But I will tell you that when you're on a team, everybody thinks, okay, being a team player. And what I find is really, well, I learned it again from Coach. I use this all the time, the fist. If you go at somebody like this, you're just going to break a finger. But if you're like this, and he does a heck of a lot better job. But I have guys work for me 25 years ago to go, hey, sir, remember the fist. We're together as a team. But the first thing you have to do is explain to them on that team that every member of that team is a part of they have to have buy-in, and they're a leader and a part of that team. Being a team player doesn't mean being a yes man or woman. Yes, oh yes, your fantastic idea. I want to be able to close the door, and here's a tough challenge, and you get 20 different perspectives. But you have to create that climate, that learning climate in the organization where folks know it's accepted, and several of the speakers have talked about that. Don't surround yourself with people exactly like you, or you're going to get a bunch of yes men off. So different perspectives, and then have a climate where you can contribute. And if you're not in charge, you can still influence that, and you can be a team player, not a yes man or woman, but a team player. And now you have to be careful. There's some bosses I've worked for. You could say that's the stupidest idea I've ever heard. They'd say thanks for telling me that. There's others I'd say that, and they'd fire you. So you have to be careful. You have to know your boss.
I think one, if you are, when you are a leader and you recognize that you have leaders, first of all, you should recognize that there are potential leaders on your team, and you should try to get their responses, not necessarily in a group setting, but individually. Not like come to my office. No, let's go play some racquetball. Let's go have a drink. And where you include them, because a really good leader will make sure that they use other leaders, because you want to use different voices. Like if people always hear it from one voice, they can kind of tune you out. But if other people are saying it, and people of different ages, where I don't think there's as much of a gender or race gap anymore, but there is an age gap. I think that that's something that a leader needs to really take a look at and overcome. How do you communicate in that regard? Now, if you're the person who is being led, then at some time I would approach the leader and say, look, I want to do the best possible job for you. This is my role that you've identified. You know, at different times, I would love to express to you how I feel about not just that role, but how it fits into everything that we're doing. How would you want me to do that? And so if you're that leader and you wait for an invitation to ask about leadership, you're going to be frustrated. If you try to initiate something like that, you may not be frustrated and everyone grows. Or you still, you stand the chance that that leader is going to say, just do your job. Okay, and then you may not want to do that job for a long time. Because that's not, eventually you're going to keep getting frustrated or stunted. And there's a chance, even though you all feel like you could never have a bad attitude, yes, you can. Yes, you can. Everybody is capable of a bad attitude at some time, especially if they put a ceiling on their potential, if they feel a ceiling is placed on their potential physically or on their potential mentally. And you have to make sure that you don't do that, or else you're not going to be as good a player as you could possibly be.
Can I make?
Yeah.
Can I just make one comment? And Mike, that was a great plant. I didn't ask him to ask that question, by the way. That's what we're going to dive into more deeply next year when we talk about leading in the 21st century, collectively educating, engaging, and empowering. And Bob was talking about empowering, and part of that came out of something you said at one of these forums, Coach. Don't delegate, empower. And so we're going to get into that.
It's like a preview of the next movie. Yeah. All of a sudden, Godzilla's going to come up. How many times have you seen that preview, for Christ's sake?
I did have just one follow-on to that of, as the leader, they used to, again, when the world was a lot slower, you could get more people involved in a decision. And now things happen often so fast that you can't. So you have to make a decision pretty quickly. But one technique I've used in having to make a decision really fast, we're going to do this. And then, again, to encourage people, you say, okay, the plan has failed. And now everybody, lieutenant, sergeant, general, colonel, tell me why it's failed. So you're telling them, you know, okay, it's failed. So you take that pressure off, and they come back. And that usually generated 3 or 4 ideas that were flaws in the plan. And so, and again, it also gets their buy-in to it. And it's a great way to make sure that you get that input, because you don't have time to do 3 course of actions and analyze them all oftentimes because it happens so fast.
A good group, though, a championship group, will not wait till they fail.
Right.
You know, you'll say something before there's a failure, because a losing group is a group that once you fail, whether they say it or not, say to themselves, I told you so.
Yeah.
But you know what? You didn't tell me so.
Yeah.
You told you so. And I'll give you a really good example of one thing, like in failed leadership for me this season. We had a real young group, and immature, but not immature, you know, like they're immature, not like that, they're just young. Everyone on my team was really young. And when we lost in the NCAA tournament, it was like about the 5th game of the season where when you're playing poorly, like a lot of people win when everything's going great. And a good number of people win when things are going good. Only a few people or teams win when it's going bad. And that's what a leader should prepare his or her team to do. They need to be close enough to win when it's going bad. In other words, it's going bad. Okay, this is going to be a bad day. We're going to lose, and we can talk about it. Or, while it's going bad, just to identify it's going bad. And now, how can anyone on our group change the direction of the group right now? If we tried that, and all the things, and we lost, we would feel better about it. You know, when we lost in the first round, I could not do it. I knew we were bad the whole time, everything we did, and it's not just what I did. There should have been people in our group, other players making sure that someone else, our two best players played their worst games of the season. That means we didn't connect. Another player didn't connect with that best player enough, so when it was going bad, say, look, man, it ain't going bad for you anymore. You're scoring the next few buckets. You understand that? I need you, we need you to do that. Where are your triggers? Where are your bullets? What do you use when it's going bad? You know, when it's going bad. And again, again, it just happened for me, so it's fresh. It's an open wound still, and but it's happened before. I mean, I've been a head coach for 39 years. It's happened before, you know, and I know it can happen. And I'm trying. That's instead of teaching offense and defense all the time, I'm trying to make sure that I'm teaching that. But you need help when you're teaching that. You need internal leadership, and you need leadership that's going on while action is going on. If you don't have those two elements, you are not going to be real good. You're not going to be real, I don't care how good you think you are. Yeah, you're not going to do it alone, and you better develop it and recruit, not just talent. You recruit character, and character that can get better. Got it? And we're going to win next year, too. You understand that? All right.